Who let the dogs out? Who let the dogs out? Who let the dogs out? Who let the dogs out?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Porters, and joining me today, he's a robot dog with glowing eyes and a sparkly belly, Sweet Johnson Kovacs from the internet.
Hi.
And he's nothing if not a student of Thurston Howell III, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and I have one thing to say. Eddie Van Halen, he knew what was up.
Welcome back, everybody. This week, we're talking about C.H.O.M.P.S. That's not just the name, it's an acronym. We'll talk about what that means in not too awful long. By the way, I was like, I need some dog songs for the opening of the show, opening and closing. It's some sort of dog thing involved with all of this. And I listened to this Baha Men. I had not listened. First of all, what year do you think that song came out?
The same year that the Rugrats went to Paris.
I'm going to guess 1990.
No, it's like 98 at least.
These are the things that I thought as well. I thought, like, this is either like a mid-90s thing or like at most 2000. The year 2000.
Really?
Who let the dogs out? Oh, I was like, what? The same, like, we are in a post-Biggie and Tupac world when this song comes out. What?
I think because I intermingle it with Whoop, There It Is.
Oh, see, yeah, that's 1992, 93. That may be 91. That's real old. I remember elementary school for sure on that one. But we're talking about C.H.O.M.P.S. from 1979, and boy, oh boy, we have just a laundry list of, I don't want to say amazing people that are in this movie, but people that are in the movie, and some names you'll recognize, and sometimes you'll go, wasn't he on a thing I might have seen once at some point? But we'll talk all about that. But before we do want to say a big thank you to the people who support us over at patreon.com/H&P. Get a pre-show, get a post-show, get yourself a Dinger Zone. And in the Dinger Zone this week, we reviewed the Mario movie. Oh, what's that? Another review that you could get if you just supported this show at any particular amount, be it $1 and on up. I don't understand. You just must be nuts if you're not doing this. Plus, you get to vote on things, and we got that coming up right after next week. So it's exciting. I'm excited for all of the stuff that we got coming up, and you can find all that at patreon.com/HMP, or head on over to the iTunes there. Give us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
And Spotify, wherever. Just tell somebody. Oh, and I don't mention this at the top of the show very often. But we're almost to like 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, and all I do is just upload this show in audio form.
Nice.
So if you so people listen to it on the internet, on YouTube and stuff. So if you don't get to your podcast device or something, or you're somewhere else that you do have access to YouTube, or somebody just goes, hey, here a movie you can send them to YouTube if they're not one of these podcasting people. So that's an option for you out there. YouTube.
Oh yeah.
YouTube is
and Nate, I got your email. I got people on it.
See, and you get things like that. We're not even going to tell you what that's about, but we got there's inside stuff
code.
Going on here.
It's secret code between me and King Solomon's frog.
And it's none of your business.
The walrus has entered the elevator.
You got
He's
that right.
going to floor 3.
I've got people on it, Nate.
Let's get into it, boys. I love this. Here is the trailer for C.H.O.M.P.S.
Ta-da!
Brian, where's the new invention? I don't get it.
Watch this.
Brian, what are you doing?
There you are. 3 years of hard work.
A mechanical watchdog.
Computerized, self-activating mobile crime deterrent. Unlike any watchdog that ever existed.
Here he comes, and there he goes. C.H.O.M.P.S, the world's greatest watchdog.
What can a little dog like that do? Even if it's an electronic dog.
He can detect a prowler or burglar anywhere within his own property.
A bite-sized, motorized, transistorized, computerized bundle of teeth.
Hey, hold it! Come on! Ah!
Valerie Bertinelli, star of the TV comedy One Day at a Time. Conrad Bain. High Guy Chuck McCann. Red Buttons.
Sorry, ladies.
Hermione Baddeley. Wesley Ure. And Jim Backus, starring in Chums. Turn him on, and he goes for your funny bone. A Shaggy Dog story from Hanna-Barbera and American International.
Alrighty, that was the trailer for Chumps from 1979. You know what time it is.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Oh, Bruce, what do you got for us this week? I don't know how you're going to pull this off.
Hey, you can't have me watch a movie that combines Hanna-Barbera and a robot dog without discussing the most spectacular such combination that ever has or ever will occur, and that is one Dino-Mutt, the Dog Wonder. He was the star of his self-titled TV show that ran from 1976 to 1977. And it only had 20 episodes, but I've seen each one of them at least 100 times because there was no dynamic duo that could compete with Blue Falcon and Dino-Mutt for a young Bruce Leslie. Blue Falcon was like a somehow even more square version of Batman, while Dino-Mutt was a bionic version of Scooby-Doo. Having often been described myself as both square and robotic, I naturally connected with this IP. Now, some people might ask, was Dino-Mutt intentionally styled after Scooby-Doo? And I might answer, Dino-Mutt was originally broadcast as a half-hour segment of the Scooby-Doo Dino-Mutt Hour, and a quarter-hour segment of its later expanded form, Scooby's All-Star Laugh Olympics. It would later be rerun and syndicated on its own from 1978 on. The cast of the Scooby-Doo show appeared as recurring characters on Dino-Mutt, assisting the daring duo in cracking their crimes. So here is a more detailed description of Dino-Mutt. The metallic mutt employs a system of miniaturized transistors which allow him to extend his limbs or neck and use them to perform extraordinary feats. However, none of them ever work properly. BF, as Dino-Mutt lovingly refers to Blue Falcon, is more Dino-Mutt's victim than his master, forever being hamstrung by the latter's insufferably clumsy mechanized mishaps, which often results in the Blue Falcon calling Dino-Mutt dog blunder. Sick burn there, Blue Falcon. Nevertheless, Dino-Mutt and the Blue Falcon, who's equipped with his own arsenal of super gadgets, managed to get the situation well in hand. And thus, in the never-ending Ouroboros that is cartoon stories, the snake bites its own tail when Inspector Gadget comes along and reignites the fire that Dino-Mutt once blazed. And speaking of blazed, Adam, do you have a list?
Well, if that wasn't...
Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
So Bruce, did I hear that right? There's only 20 episodes?
Yes.
Of really?
Of Dino-Mutt. Yeah.
Because I watched that show for years and years as a dumb little kid.
I watched it at least, I'm not lying, at least 250 times a year for about 3 years.
It was literally that and Grape Ape were my favorite cartoons, like as a little kid.
And I like Space Ghost, and I think it's another one that doesn't have nearly as many episodes as you think.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Adam. I broke your momentum, and I'll never do it again.
That's all right. If that wasn't enough, let me sell everybody on this robot dog adventure because this sucker has everything. We've got an animated opening sequence that reportedly made Blake Edwards tell his secretary to get his lawyer on the phone. You heard the trailer. We got one heck of a cast here. We got the dad from Different Strokes, Duckworth from DuckTales, Red Buttons, Thurston Howell III, the maid from Harry Poppins, that dork from Land of the Lost, and Valerie Burton Ernie. What a cast! We've got
Valerie Burton Ernie.
That's a good name. It took me a minute to figure that one out.
Buddy.
We got exposition radio, criminals in a caddy, wood paneling everywhere, more watchdog talk than you've ever heard before. Dogs with voices. Okay, yeah, it's that kind of movie. We got music that sounds like boiling soup. Old lady in the best house coat you've ever seen. Dog names like Muffin, Monster, and Rascal. Bumbling criminals with ski masks and hats. A winning combo, if you ask me. One of my favorite quotes, what can you say to a man with a gun? A dog that follows commands, now that's a security system. We got dog head ripping an old exercise bike, keeping a dog-bitten car tire for, I don't know, exposition, I guess. We got donkey dog sound effects, sure to deter any robbery. X-ray vision, dog smashing through windows, property damage, a guy painting a wall, and a woman driving. You know where this one's gonna go. But you're not really mad about it. Sprinklers and old school process shots.
Oh boy,
I can't talk.
You're not kidding.
Dog smashing through doors, dog smashing through a wall, dog jumps over different flora and fauna, dog has a machine gun noises that come out of its mouth, slow-mo mania as we've got to make this thing feature length. Someone bought a sound library and it's really needed to justify that purpose for taxes and stuff, so they kind of made this movie. We got Home of the Whopper, feats of dog strength, cardboard boxes, operating heavy machinery, news van. No. How about a news station wagon? We got a guy that looks like a Jonathan Ross, but no lisp. But that's weird. Conveyor belt ride, payphone humor, trampoline humor, skateboard humor, but skateboards are so new that he doesn't know what to call it yet, which is hilarious. Lampshade humor, dumpster humor, outhouse humor, medical equipment humor, a dog catcher, of course, exploding van test at the L.A. River, hot tubbing down, running down the tracks, headliner ripping, tennis ball launching, a dog kicks over a truck. What more do you want? Okay, fine. The last word in this PG-rated film, a curse word. God bless you, 1979. This movie's got everything.
So before we really get into it, because we are going to break this sucker down, am I right in thinking that, Adam, you had never even heard of this movie before?
No clue.
And Bruce, had you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen this, but I have no idea how.
Well, from what again,
my guess is under duress.
it's a thing I'm remembering wrong, because I'm remembering it as that it was on HBO all the time, but that is not the case, because this actually was a TV movie.
And was it a
that makes
TV
sense.
movie? Because I had some questions about that, so we'll come back to that. Please continue.
And so, but it's one of those movies where, much like with Super Fuzz, it was on constantly all the time, and it was one of those movies where I don't remember anything about it because I was too little when it was on, but I definitely watched it a lot when I was a little kid. And so I didn't remember anything from this except for like the barking, like the noises the dog would make. And I remember thinking that was funny when I was a little kid, like when he makes the sounds of a train.
I'm watching the whole thing going just like, there's so many times I had to remind myself that this is coming out of this dog, these just random sounds that are going through it. I'm like, they don't really make it super clear that it's the dog all of the time. You're like, where's this sound? Oh, right, that's the dog.
I have pretty distinct memories of thinking this was a Benji movie. Like this was Benji stars in Chomps, but this is not Benji.
He's got
As a
that vibe
kid,
to him, though.
I couldn't tell.
It does. He does. He seems like Benji.
I think it's a mistake that they wanted the stupid kids like me to make.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
for
without
years,
a doubt.
I would talk about like that movie where Benji had superpowers, and that was Chomps.
And then everyone
That's
just
Chomps.
goes like, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about.
Now-
That's not a thing that exists.
So this had some of the telltale signs of made for TV, which is what led me to look it up. And then I saw about its theatrical release and its box office. So that had me confused because it's when I read about the release or the reception on Wikipedia, I mean, I didn't dig super deep, but it seemed to suggest this was a theatrical release, which shocked me.
It might have been. It might have been one of those things where, like, because this is clearly something that where Hanna-Barbera was trying to like kind of break into the Disney live action stuff.
Yeah.
And so it wouldn't surprise me at all if there was a theatrical release. It doesn't do well. And so instead they repackage it as a TV movie.
But some telltale signs that had me peg this as TV movie from a guy who still has memories of what TV movies were like in the late 70s, early 80s. But I mean, first off, it's formatted for a TV screen.
Yep.
I don't know what you call that format there. I'm
4:3.
sure Adam does. Yeah, 4:3. And when you see the that opening sequence that's so remarkable, they've tried to make it panoramic on top of a 4:3,
Okay,
so you get that little tiny rectangle.
So I can tell you this. That is what makes me go, this is a theatrical version, because that, if you put that in 4:3, the reason that you see it in widescreen there is because, like, on the VHS, for example, you're playing on a 4:3 television back in 1982 when this thing came out on VHS. So they're like, okay, if we put that in 4:3, you're not going to see the left and right of all of this animation, and that's got all the names of the people in it. So we have to do that. And as was common practice back then, you would have the opening in the widescreen there. Bond films, for example.
So do you think what we're seeing is a transfer of a TV transfer of a theatrical release?
This is just either TV or VHS transfer of that, because it's just 4:3.
Here's the other telltale
because you
sign,
can't get this in widescreen in Blu-ray if memory serves.
Why didn't I do that?
Only $20 on Amazon right now, everybody.
But the other telltale sign is it has like stars from the popular TV shows on a particular channel, which unfortunately I kind of remember that I'm pretty sure Different Strokes and One Day at a Time were on the same network. So I'm sitting here thinking, and in 1979, both of those were successful shows. So I'm thinking we got Valerie Bertinelli from One Day at a Time. We got Mr. Drummond over here. We got somebody from Gilligan's Island. It has all the the casting that one would expect for the CBS movie of the week, when it was all a made for TV movie with their own stars that they would kind of promote to show during the summer when their regular shows were on hiatus.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's what it ended up being. But I think they tried to release this in theaters, but it was definitely out. How I saw it was on as a TV movie.
Oh yeah, that would have definitely been how I would have seen it too. Or maybe at a drive-in if it was still showing like in 83, 84, but no, in 79, I wasn't going to see this in the theater.
So let's get into it.
Yeah.
All right. So C.H.O.M.P.S, or C.H.O.M.P.S, which stands for Canine Home Mobile Protection System. It was directed by Don Chaffee, who was mostly a TV director. But in 1963, he did direct Jason and the Argonauts. C.H.O.M.P.S had
beautiful movie too.
Yeah. And one of those movies also where, the directors that we like cite Jason and the Argonauts as one of their favorite movies. Like John Carpenter, Jason and the Argonauts is his favorite movie.
Yeah. And for me, it's like an honorable mention of my all-time favorites because it's like the inspiration for so much of what I like.
It's like, oh, Sam Raimi, you like this? No kidding.
Yeah. Sam Raimi. Yeah. No kidding. So C.H.O.M.P.S had 3 screenwriters. Those screenwriters are Dick Robbins, Dwayne Poole, and Joseph Barbera. And I'll give you one guess which one of the 3 wasn't pulling their weight.
I'm going to say Barbera. If I'm a guess.
And although if you're not on the cast of this movie, if you weren't one of the main stars of this movie, you're more than likely dead now. But not only is writer Dwayne Poole still alive, but he only just retired last year.
Wow.
That's what I call determination there.
And he had been writing like a machine for the Hallmark Channel, where I'm not even kidding, he'd written 7 different scripts in 3 years, and his screenplays have names like "'Tis the Season to Be Merry" and a Very Vintage Christmas and Sugar Plum Twist.
How old are we talking when he finally retired?
I don't have any idea, but I'm going to guess that he's probably in his 70s is my guess.
I was guessing more like 90.
He was fairly, my guess is he was probably fairly young when he was brought into Hanna-Barbera, because as when you start working at those at those animation shops, they bring you in so early.
Now, I got to tell you that this show sends some mixed signals. Because number one, it really feels like they're trying to hopefully set up a C.H.O.M.P.S TV show.
Oh, without a doubt, at least a cartoon. Cartoon.
Maybe a cartoon, but there's no way in the world if this became a series that One Day at a Time or different strokes are going to let go of those actors. You know what I mean? Because those are very successful shows in 1979. So that's where
Different
I'm saying
Strokes
doesn't.
Different Strokes isn't on TV yet.
Yeah, that's another.
When did that premiere?
2 or 3 years, I think.
Yeah, it's.
Oh my goodness! I would have sworn
83.
it was. I would have sworn it was around back then. I apologize for the incorrect information. But still, when I see Conrad Bain, man, Mr. Drummond, time is a flat circle. I cannot conceive of him ever existing before he was Mr. Drummond.
And he was in a lot of stuff. That guy was in. Conrad Bain was in a ton of stuff before he was Mr. Drummond.
Like, we need a pompous a-hole.
Nobody's allowing you to call yourself Conrad if you're only in one thing, because that's a pretty pretentious name.
He looks like a Conrad too, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
It's like,
so,
yeah,
and his middle name is Stafford, so there's no less pretentious option there.
Lover.
Just go by Bain.
So as the movie opens, we see the old Orion logo, which shouldn't affect me nearly as much as it does, but it does.
Please let me actually.
Yeah.
1978. That's when we get our first season of The World Don't Move to the Beat of Just One Dream.
Oh, 1978.
Huh.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That feels so 80s to me.
They must have just been replaying that so much, because I watched that show as a kid, and I was born in 82. So I had to be at least like 6 or something before I remember, 5 or 6 to remember that show being there. They've been playing that forever.
Can I ask you a real world question here? So when you are a kid and you're watching that show in syndication, did it feel like the oldest show in the world when you were watching it?
No, it felt like, I don't know any different. Looks brand new.
It was pretty modern. It felt like a modern show.
As far as I'm aware, that's what. And again, I kind of grew up in a small town in the South, so like we were kind of behind the times on everything, anyways. So
the reason why I ask you is because when I was a kid and they would show reruns of like Barney Miller or MASH, those seemed like the oldest shows in the world to me.
But then again, like I watched, this is probably a couple years later, but like I watched like a boatload of Nick at Night and stuff, and like I never, like I loved all of that stuff.
I think, honestly, Sean, I think somewhere around 83, 84, they actually caught up to what a cathode ray tube would do for definition. So like anything until we kind of made the move over to plasma TVs and HD TVs and stuff, I think it reached a point where it held up better, but we were kids before it got to that point. You know what I mean?
See.
Like when the technology was still emerging before it plateaued and had to be replaced.
I do. So, I bet you that MASH looks great now if you're watching it.
Yeah, and a lot of MASH was like actually shot on film.
Oh, right. It all was.
So if restored, it's going to look phenomenal. It's just a matter of how it got to us as the consumer at the time on our cathode ray tube. And me, I was still working with only black and white in my bedroom as late as like 1990.
Your crummy rabbit ears and everything. It's like you had all of the things against you.
Okay, so we see the Orion logo, which just
20 minutes into the show, we're at the Orion logo.
Well, man, this is the problem when you start doing this. I mean, if I need to hyper jump, we can hyper jump through some stuff here. But and then we get 2 minutes and 30 seconds of something that I thought was long extinct, which are animated opening credits. To say that these credits feel long, to say that these credits feel long is a disservice to the words long and feel.
So Adam,
yeah.
Let me describe a business idea I had when I was watching these credits.
Okay.
I was thinking, like, I want to open some kind of experience in Denver where people pay me a bunch of money and they have to, like, take a real big hit from a vape pen, gobble down some gummies, go into a dark theater with, like, an IMAX-sized screen and watch these intros for 2 hours on a loop. and I want to see what that experience is like. I bet it'll be a hit if I talk about it on TikTok.
Oh my word. It is like, and it's not even great anime. Like I said, it looks like all the Blake Edwards stuff in the Pink Panther movies, but really, really crummy.
Yeah, well, in true Hanna-Barbera style.
Yeah.
It stinks.
Where I'm sure that Blake Edwards was using the best animators that he could possibly pay for, whereas Hanna-Barbera is like, let's get a couple of child laborers.
Just scribble on this a little bit. It's fine.
Yeah. So our first scene starts the way any good movie starts, with a news broadcast.
Laying it down. Nice and thick.
A weird news broadcast. Let's get to it.
And I'm not sure what was going on in the 70s or 80s, but why was everyone so afraid of people breaking into your home and murdering you while you were at home? Like constantly.
It was so pervasive. Every time a television or radio is turned on, they're talking about people breaking into your house and killing you.
Yes.
But meanwhile, their actual depiction of criminals is so like low stakes.
Yes.
Like so non-threatening.
Yes.
But at the same time, too, they aren't wrong because they are constantly going at these
Yes.
people as if they have some sort of vendetta almost against them.
Yes.
I would love to see that kind of movie. But yeah, they are constantly coming after. So the news report's not wrong.
Now, am I supposed to understand that Conrad Bain is his multi-million-dollar company? He's threatened at the prospect of people having dogs as pets? Because that's a business plan you didn't think through, my friend.
I love how it's called Norton Security. That made me so happy.
Hey, we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Sorry.
And so the newsman says the line, "At present, your home is not safe even when you are there." and he says, basically, you need a good watchdog that can alert you to your neighbors. And the camera pulls back to reveal that there's a little white fluffy dog sitting in a workshop somewhere, watching and seeming to understand the news broadcast. But what's this? Two white guys pull up in a black Cadillac, and you know they're bad guys because they're wearing black knit caps and hoodies. And that the dog that's been watching TV immediately realizes that someone's trying to break in, and he jumps up, breaking the door down on top of our bad guy. And it's at this very moment in the opening scene of this movie that I realize we're watching a movie that was made for very young children, and I have unwittingly doomed us all by choosing to watch Chomps for the next hour and a
It was
half.
at this moment that I realized this movie is not John Wick 4. This is some other, oh boy.
And there's something off about the dog. It's jumping too high. It's too strong for a dog that size. And then we see our main character, who looks exactly like the actor that played Greg Brady on the Brady Bunch, but isn't Greg Brady.
Yeah.
And he yells a number at the dog, and the dog stops attacking and stops barking immediately.
1979 is the reason there was once a hole in the ozone layer.
We then cut to Norton Security Systems, where Mr. Drummond from Different Strokes is playing a corporate business suit type of guy, and he is unhappy. Turns out Mr. Drummond called an emergency meeting and someone hasn't showed up. And if there's one thing Mr. Drummond can't stand, it's having meetings delayed. And as he and his lackey named Ken are waiting, they're watching a totally different news broadcast, but it's also talking about how criminals want to break into your home
That's
and
my
murder you.
favorite. I love it so much because it was just like, this is clearly such a pervasive problem that everyone is talking about it, not just Channel 6. No, they're all talking about it.
That's why a small town security company is worth $5 million in 1979.
At the same time, too, when he gets to that $5 million valuation, I'm just like, that is a nothing company. What are you were not that big a hoax guy in there.
All
man.
joking aside, this is the era that gave us Death Wish and 10 Till Midnight. So, you know.
So every channel in this movie just keeps talking about the crime that's loose in this. I mean, let's call a spade here. This incredibly nice small California town that for some reason has criminals that behave like Batman has just died in Gotham. And the news makes Mr. Drummond so upset that he picks up the world's largest TV remote and shuts off the TV.
Okay, guys. If it's okay, I just want to say, imagine you got some dirty work that needs to be done, and you got to hire some guys that need to get their hands dirty. Now, I imagine nowadays you go to the dark web or something, but back then, I guess you put out some whispers in the kind of roadhouses and juke joints that ne'er-do-wells would go around. And then when people answer the call, and let's just say you get applications, how bad do the applicants have to be that Red Buttons gets the gig?
Well, we're getting there. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. I promise you.
Okay.
He hasn't. Red Buttons hasn't shown up yet. We then cut back to Greg Brady's brother, who leaves his dog that we now know is named Rascal home alone. And we get to the most mystifying part of this movie for me, because there's a giant black dog that lives next to Greg Brady's brother's house. And that dog is named Monster. So Monster walks up to our hero's house where Rascal is enjoying a bone, and we hear a voice say, "Hand over that bone, turkey." And Monster starts barking at Rascal, which makes Rascal pick up his bone and run away. So my question is this. What is happening here? Can other dogs hear Monster, or are we just hearing Monster's thoughts? Because humans don't ever answer Monster back, and it's not like any other dogs in the movie are speaking.
No.
It's just Monster.
And at the same time, too, the Monster voice also, like, he makes Sam Elliott sound like Orson Welles.
Yes.
It's so bad.
Do you guys remember when being called a turkey was actually something you might fight over?
I think 1979 was the last year you were able to do that legally.
I think I remember me and my brother getting mad at each other and calling each other turkeys. And like it wasn't like a joke. And that would have been later than 1979.
It's a Kentucky version of Silly Goose.
All right, you've convinced me. I'm going to start calling everybty turkey.
Hey, listen up there,
It's
turkey.
like it was like if you know, like calling somebody a chicken. Like you call somebody a chicken now, I don't know. They're like, what you like Back to the Future too, I guess. But like back when I was a kid, calling somebody a chicken was a legit insult that they had to respond to. And if they countered with calling you a turkey, that's even worse than a chicken. You can't come back from that. You can come back from being called a chicken.
I slept with your mother.
Anyway, I remember when like if somebody called me a turkey now, I would slow down and say, you've been overdosing on like Good Times or something lately.
That's exactly why I'm going to use it, for that reason alone. That reason alone.
We'll have at it, man.
I'm going to start whenever I'm excited by something, I'm going to start saying dynamite.
You have to do it until somebody calls you Huggy Bear.
I rest my case, Justice Walker.
So Rascal barely escapes Monster with his life by going through the doggy door because Monster can't fit through. And Rascal taunts Monster by holding the bone right in front of his face, just out of reach. Monster walks away, but not before calling Rascal a smartass and yelling at an old lady by saying the line, "Up your poop, Granny," whatever that means. And I hope you like the song during the chase scene, because it's one of the two songs that gets played throughout the entire movie.
Oh, man.
There are two songs throughout the entire movie that get played, and that's it.
This is very much in that same kind of score as the original Doctor Strange TV movie, where they've got like two or three things that they do. It all sounds like bubble in the soup, and you're just done.
Now
what were they going for here with Monster? Like he never is a true villain, but he's also never an ally.
He's another 15 minutes in the program is what he is.
I think that Adam is correct. I think it's just a time killer.
Maybe there'll be the spin-off Monsters block.
They're like, we got to spend this money that we got. Jeez.
We're gonna need a bad guy for the cartoon.
Make it a dog.
So here's the thing about the soundtrack to this movie, though, is that Hoyt Curtin wrote the music for this movie. And Hoyt Curtin actually wrote every single song for Hanna-Barbera, starting with Huckleberry Hound in 1958, right up till to the Smurfs in 1988. So, and here's just a few cartoons he wrote the theme song to: The Flintstones, Johnny Quest, Josie and the Pussycats, Scooby-Doo, Hong Kong Phooey, The Super Friends, Battle of the Planets, and the Smurfs.
Didn't decide to bring any of that talent to this program, huh?
Well, I'm not going to give him crap, because he's like, you know what? These guys haven't paid me for 30 years. I'm gonna take a vacation.
Here comes the fart synthesizer. Watch out.
Yeah, there is a ton of fart synthesizer. But finally, the movie's biggest star shows up. I'm stealing your joke, Adam. Valerie Bertin-Ernie finally shows up, giving this movie some much-needed star power, and she wants to know where Greg Brady's brother is, and his next-door neighbor tells her that she just missed him. So we then cut...
I'm sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
So we then cut back to Mr. Drummond's office, and Greg's brother shows up late, wearing a suit this time. Turns out our main character is the reason why this meeting started late, and Mr. Drummond is furious because he's losing customers left and right, and he blames the whole thing on Greg's brother, when who should show up in the middle of the workday? That's right, two middle-aged guys wearing ski masks break into Norton security systems, and they've got guns, and they're holding Valerie Bertin-Ernie hostage. And this all happens in the first 10 minutes of the movie. We're literally 10 minutes into the movie. They want everyone's wallets and watches, and one of the robbers calls the other one by his actual first name, which spooks the bigger criminal. And instead of murdering everyone in the room, he doesn't. Instead, he and the other robber take about 5 minutes bumbling around trying to leave. And we'll come to find out later that we have just met the comic relief of this movie.
And you're going to continue to see this exact same scene over and over, essentially.
Which is to say, the most unfunny part of an already difficult movie. So Mr. Drummond gets so mad that he fires our main character, Greg's brother, and Valerie Burton Ernie tries to talk some sense into Mr. Drummond, who also happens to be her dad. And this is where I got to say this.
Yes, because I'm going to have to say something too. Please go ahead.
Please, no, you go, because I'm
okay. Because I've got a crackpot theory that unrolls inside my brain as I'm watching this movie and thinking about it and thinking like this really does have some deep, dark undertones. Because I'm picturing Conrad Bain. How old do you think Conrad Bain is in 1979?
Here's the thing. He looks 65, so I'm going to say he's 42.
Let's stick with he looks 65. How old do you think Valerie Bertinelli is? Because she's unmarried in 1979, which means she's like 19 max.
Yeah, I was about to say 18, 19. She's young.
She's probably not even 20 years old in this movie.
Okay, so Conrad Bain is such an old father that he was actually dedicated his life to business. He actually had a very successful auto parts company where he sold auto parts around the region, and he had given up on ever finding love. Then one day he's in this auto parts retailer. He's dropping it off. There's this nice lady behind the counter, a little too young for him to be flirting with her, but he finds himself flirting with her. They fall in love. She moves back in with him. He's got this big house because he was very successful selling auto parts. Then a home invasion happens. The love of his life, his wife, is killed in a home invasion. He's obsessed with protecting his daughter, who grows up to be Valerie Bertinelli. So his whole life becomes obsessed with preventing home invasions. Now that's the kind of character motivation that I think goes through Conrad Bain's head before he performs.
And Conrad Bain ends up selling that auto parts company to Tommy Callahan's dad.
Exactly.
Now, you know how you just took it off the rails? I'm going to go even further.
Ooh.
So
I raised you.
So here's the thing, right? So when I was a writer, like a comedy writer, like for real, where I would pay my rent being a comedy writer, I had a writing partner, and we had to come up with new ideas every week for this live show we did. And when you are in that kind of crunch, you do anything you can to keep writing. So when we would get writer's block, what we would do is we would write a fictional 60s live action Disney movie that never existed.
Yeah.
And that movie was called There's a Goat in Heaven. And so we wrote a movie where this farmer is supposed to die, and God has his two most bumblingest angels, played by Dom DeLuise, and I can't remember who the other one was, go to Earth to bring this farmer to heaven. But unfortunately, the two bumbling angels, through a wacky mix-up involving like lots of paint cans and paper, snag the farmer's goat instead.
Oh.
So while they're at the gates of heaven, Dom DeLuise opens up the bag and he's like, "Oh no, we didn't get the farmer, we got the goat." God's gonna be so mad. And then God, who we always argued over who was gonna play God in the movie. Like there was always like a back and forth on who should play it. Like I think that I wanted Charlton Heston because I wanted a serious actor to play God.
I'm more of a Mel Brooks is who I was voting for.
So, but Mel Brooks in a Disney movie. Anyway,
Johnny Wahlberg is God.
Dude, we're talking the 60s. We're talking 1960s. So
Larry McMurtry or whatever.
Oh yeah. My Three Sons. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So this is where I'm going to end it, because this is the best place to end it, is that Dom DeLuise is like, "Oh God, we're so sorry. We really screwed up. We know we were trying to get that farmer, and we didn't. We ended up not getting the farmer." And God says, "Well, that's fine. as long as there isn't a goat in heaven, we'll be just fine. Boing. And so for the next hour, Dom DeLuise and his partner have to hide this goat from God the entire movie. And there's a goat in heaven.
You remember?
I'd pay $5.
Maybe late 80s to early 90s. There was like the British comedy movie Nuns on the Run.
Oh yeah.
Who was that duo?
It was Eric Idle and Robbie Coltrane.
Okay, because I could see Eric Idle. I knew it was like Monty Python roots or something, but I could see those two as the angels in this movie.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So sorry I took us so off the rails, guys. We cut to outside Norton Security Systems, and Valerie Burt Ernie is being followed by her dad's lackey named Ken, who says he'll try to talk some sense into Mr. Drummond. But then he hits on her, letting you, the audience, know that Ken is going to be a bad guy. And keep in mind, we're not even 15 minutes into this movie yet.
I like it. I like it when it's as subtle as professional wrestling. I really want to know who to cheer for.
Well, you got it, mister. We then cut back to our main character's house, which so far we've only seen his workshop, literally not a single other part of his house. And Greg Brady's brother is picking up crap he left lying around his work desk, and he's probably thinking about how much he wishes he was like his idol, the father from the movie Gremlins, when Valerie Burt Ernie walks in, and we find out that she and Greg Brady's brother are about to get married, and he knows her. He shows her the new security system he's working on, and we already know what that is because we're watching a movie called C.H.O.M.P.S, which is a movie about a robot dog that saves the world. So it's not like it's a massive reveal when C.H.O.M.P.S turns out to be a robot dog that saves the world. And our main character has made it look exactly like his real life dog,
which sounds like a real smart plan.
Well, you know that's not going to come up later in any way.
Mm-mm.
I'll tell you what, though, the scene when they had the two identical dogs standing next to each other, I was impressed because in 1979, on their budget, they had to go find two identical dogs.
They did.
Good for them.
They did. We then cut back to Mr. Drummond in his office, and he's all like, business, business, business. And his dirtbag lackey, Ken, is all like, you're absolutely right, boss. Business, 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 boss. And then the phone rings, and we're introduced to the best part of this movie, Mr. Drummond's main competition, Mr. Gibbs, played by none other than Thurston Howell III himself, Jim Backus.
Oh, it's so good.
Or Mr. Magoo for those who like people with eye maladies.
That's right. And when we first see him, he's wearing a green velvet tracksuit while smoking a cigar, working on an exercise bike.
That's me in 3 years, people count.
Now, to say that this man is bringing the thunder is an understatement.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good. And we learn that Mr. Howell is trying to buy out Mr. Drummond's security company, which makes Mr. Drummond red hot. And he says, I've got a revolutionary new security system that's going to put you out of business. And Thurston Howell totally takes him down by saying, sounds like you stopped making security systems and started making cock and bull stories. Oh, looks like Mr. Drummond's going to need some salve on that sick bird. We cut back to Greg Brady's brother's workshop, and we learn that he's been trying to make all different types of dog species robots, but the only one he can make work is the kind that's exactly like his dog.
I love it that the other ones don't take.
Yeah,
like
for some reason.
It's the shape of the casing that's the problem and not the programming. Because that would be the only difference, right? Because he says the Doberman kept chasing cars and catching them. So
right.
Did he just need it smaller so that when it caught the cars, it couldn't bite the tire?
Maybe it's one of those things where like, oh no, the dog now rules us. This robot dog now rules us, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, and kind of the trivia. The trivia on Wikipedia said that originally they were going to do a Doberman, which is kind of probably why they had the handy Doberman prop around to use.
Because they already made it.
And there was, you want to talk about there's a movie where a guy trains Dobermans to rob a bank.
I think I remember that from my childhood, man.
I think it's, or are they? I forget which dogs they are, but yeah, there's a movie about these dogs that are trained to rob banks. It's great.
It seems like different eras have their different dogs that everybody's afraid of.
It's true.
Irrationally. And I think that we were Doberman kids, right? Like weren't Dobermans the scary breed back around the time we were kids?
Definitely. I had an aunt and uncle that had 2 Dobermans, and they had to keep them in the other room because I was such a sucky baby that I would just look at them and start crying.
Yeah, same here.
What about Rottweilers? Where are you on those?
Those come later.
Those, yeah,
Yes,
I
those
felt like
come
that was the
later.
90s kind of thing.
They come later, and they sort of like pit bulls made a brief appearance, then Rottweilers came, and the Rotties took their thunder, and then pit bulls came back in
again,
a major way, and they've been
Yeah.
sticking around.
Well, they kept biting kids' faces off.
Well,
and, that'll do it.
that happens. You get your names in the headline a little bit more. It's not necessarily always for
true.
good, but hey,
So outside of Greg Brady's brother's shop are 2 middle-aged robbers that are like the Wet Bandits, except not funny. and they're trying to steal whatever it is that Greg Brady's brother is working on. Only C.H.O.M.P.S gets activated and immediately takes off after the sweaty, unfunny middle-aged men. And I forgot to mention that throughout the movie, C.H.O.M.P.S makes noises like machine guns and a lion's roar and a freight train. And I got to tell you, to my 6-year-old brain, it was the height of comedy. But as an adult, it's just a loud movie. This movie's on the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids side of loud, which is, to this day, the loudest, noisiest movie ever made.
It's like, let's have kids just screaming for 90 minutes. That'll do.
It's literally kids just screaming for 90 minutes, that movie.
Man, I'm so stressed out. I've been working all day at this daycare. I want to relax with a little Rick Moranis movie. I'll be back later, honey.
So C.H.O.M.P.S scares the 2 unfunny men away, and a lady blows a dog whistle that makes C.H.O.M.P.S goes crazy, and he starts running around, and they chase C.H.O.M.P.S down the road, and Valerie Burton Ernie's sweet white Fiat. And C.H.O.M.P.S causes a bunch of things to happen, like a guy painting a wall spills a bucket of paint on himself, and he causes multiple car crashes. And when you think the pandemonium is never going to end, a cop blows his whistle, which causes C.H.O.M.P.S to stop flipping out. And Greg's brother and Valerie Burton Ernie find him, and as soon as C.H.O.M.P.S gets in that Fiat, the Fiat is then transported to a green screen on a soundstage.
Well, a projector screen with another projector showing up on the.
So Adam, I got a question for you. Did the lady with the dog whistle give you any kind of like Miss Kravitz vibe? Because I thought it was going to be going that way.
Yeah, like she's kind of like seeing things, and then she's like a lot of rubbing her eyes, going like, "What's this dog doing?" kind of thing.
I was expecting her to be the one to try to tell everybody what the dog could do. And
No.
crazy, but it didn't go down that pathway.
No, I don't think she smoked enough for my
The dog whistle, though, man.
I feel like that lady would have been smoking an awful lot.
Once again, I like it that because the robot is shaped like a dog, it thus has a lot of dog traits, like responding to a dog whistle.
Yeah, and there's so many programming things within this to where, and it's not like he like doesn't get the dog back, and like the dog is almost in his possession the entire time for the most part. Why at any point does he never change? Like, I mean, we see him kind of show off the insides of the dog, but never change any programming or anything. Odd.
It's true. He's never working on it.
Nah, he's just like, hey, check out all the guts, and you're like, okay, that's cool. Do you want to like make him not do the stupid crap he's been doing for the last 3-4 days here? It's like, no. Let's put that head back on.
Let me ask you a question here. If you've got a little of alone time with Valerie Bertinelli, are you really going to be working on your fake robot dog?
That's fair.
Sadly, yes.
He's just like, I mean, like, it's a robot dog. Come on, what do you want from me?
You weren't around for this, Bruce, but last week off air, I had a conversation with Adam where I was like, is Valerie Bertinelli like she's an actress that like she's always been super cute but never sexy?
Yes.
And I was like, I can't think of the modern equivalent of that today. And Adam completely nailed it. And he said that who did you say, Adam?
Zooey Deschanel.
Zooey Deschanel is the modern day equivalent
very
of that.
cute, but she couldn't throw on sexy. You wouldn't buy it. You'd go like,
It's
wait,
great.
what are you doing now? Stop that. Wait, no,
Yeah,
look,
that's
go back
pretty
to
good,
being
man.
cute. Go back to being cute. Valerie Burton Ernie's the same way. She's very, very cute, but you'd never be like, oh my word.
I call
What a
that like
pot.
Sally Field energy.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
like, yeah.
man, Sally Field is red hot in Smokey and the Bandit.
But that's about it.
But you know what? If you'd cast Valerie Bertinelli in that role, wouldn't have been the same.
It wouldn't.
No, not at all.
But yeah.
Well,
but-
first of all, the police would really be coming after Burton for real reasons instead of just because he's got beer.
yeah, that's true. You got beer and a minor, and you're crossing the Mississippi River. Can't go well.
This movie's getting dark.
So we cut to later in the day, and Valerie Burton Ernie is at her dad's house, and you know that the man is absolutely loaded because he's got a pool table and a big wood fireplace and so many ornamental plates at his house your head would spin.
I love
And
that
she's-
room so much.
It's so cool.
Great
It's so,
stuff.
It's so late 70s like wealth.
I know, man. There was a brief time when I lived in North Carolina that I tried to recreate, like in my head, I was like, the aesthetic was when Ray Charles first got money and he
Mhm.
wanted people to know, but because he couldn't really see what he was getting, sometimes it didn't always fit right. So that's
Yeah.
what my house was like. Because but I went for that aesthetic briefly.
So Valerie Burton Ernie's trying to convince Mr. Drummond to take a look at Chomps. Mr. Drummond isn't having any of it, and Greg's brother shows up with Chomps anyway. And wouldn't you know it, at the exact same time he's demonstrating Chomps, burglars show up in the middle of the day to steal Mr. Drummond's Mercedes.
How many times does your security system office have to get robbed before you change careers?
My word. Well, they're at his house this time, so they're getting him at work. They're getting him at home. They're just constantly after Mr.
I'm just
Drummond.
glad it's not a parachute factory at this point.
And the thing is, they're different robbers. Like it's
You're
two
clearly
different
in-
sets of robbers.
You're clearly incompetent at your job, Mr. Drummond.
So we cut to so Chomps is activated and immediately starts chasing them down. And then we cut to the middle of a commercial for Burger King where two cops and a news reporter are talking. And
Well,
it
you can
turns
have
out-
it your way. Like it's almost that.
really. And it
Man,
turns out, I'm sorry, go ahead.
If cholesterol weren't a concern, you know that 1979 Burger King tastes good.
I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
It's going to taste better than any Burger King we got going these days.
Absolutely true.
I wouldn't eat a Burger King for nothing today.
And it turns out that this news reporter is looking for a news story. And wouldn't you know it, Chomps is chasing after the burglars right through the Burger King this reporter is eating it. And the reporter stands up and says the line, "A dog with a police siren built into it. Now that's gotta be news."
Well, listen,
And he-
let me tell you something. After a decade of working in news, I'm gonna tell you this is all accurate. Eating at the getting a Whopper, seeing some crazy crap, and just going, "We got to do that," and just running after it, even if it doesn't make any sense for you to be doing so. It's very accurate.
And so the reporter, smelling a story like he's April O'Neil, hops into his red station wagon
Love it.
with the letters KYOL painted on the side
Poorly.
poorly
Yeah, that's not done well at all.
and chases after Chomps, who is chasing after the burglars. And Chomps corners the burglars into a warehouse where he then attempts to murder them by operating a forklift and dropping a pallet on top of them,
I
trapping
love
them
it.
in their own vehicle.
I love
Well, I
heavy
will-
machinery operating with an animal. Just give it to me, please. Thank you.
I will compliment Chomps for being progressive in 1979. The news reporter was a person of color, which wasn't always your go-to on television and sitcoms
True.
and stuff back then.
It's true.
Which means they
The
couldn't hire a
cops-
white guy because he just didn't show up.
So the cops, the reporter, Mr. Drummond, Valerie Burton Ernie, and Greg Brady's brother all show up at the scene. The reporter immediately starts asking about this amazing robot dog. And we finally cut back to the secret weapon of this movie. And it couldn't happen fast enough. Thurston Howell III was watching this on his television. And is he still smoking a cigar? Yeah. Does he say out loud to no one, "That dog will be mine"? Oh yeah. Yeah, he sure does. And then he
So,
gets, I'm sorry, go ahead.
how many faces are on Mount Rushmore? 4?
Or
There's 4.
Okay, so I'm trying to think of like in a Bruce's favorite hammy actors, Mount Rushmore, I think Jim Backus is worthy of one of those 4 spots.
Man, he's like a relief pitcher in this movie. He's so needed. He's so welcomed in this movie. He's so good.
Yeah, he is just I mean, sometimes you see a person and you think, oh, they've only got that one role, but then you see him doing something else and you feel the joy and you understand they were something before they got that one role. You know what I mean? Like the guy's got a thing that he can do.
And like the contrast between what Red Buttons and the other fat guy are doing versus what Jim Backus is doing, you really do. It's like night and day seeing like, oh, Jim Backus is actually like, it's impressive what he is doing in this movie. Like they give him almost nothing and he's just coming in and just cleaning the house. He's great.
And for the record, I wouldn't go so far as to call that other guy with red buttons fat. He's got a little bit of a glandular problem, probably thyroid. He's just robust. He's Rubenesque.
A Rubenesque man.
I mean, what's he going to do? I heard he's Samoan.
He was if you IMDb him, like he was probably a voiceover in 8 billion things that you heard.
Yeah, man, he was a huge voiceover guy. He was in literally everything.
He basically played this role quite a bit on like TV movies and stuff, if I remember correctly. Like he was a familiar that guy.
Yeah, he's that rare case where he did both acting and voiceover work.
I had this
during that time anyway.
Yeah, and I had this like mind-blowing moment when I was watching this, which is like, if I were the kind of guy to I don't know, to like kind of trip out over a strange thought, but I started watching this thinking like, man, is it possible that the villains on Chomps were the blueprint for the Wet Bandits? Like, was John Hughes a big fan of Chomps? I got to know the answer to that.
Well, I think that because it's just so stock and trade, like the two bumbling burglars, like, I mean, you pick a Disney movie, there's two bumbling burglars in it.
That's true.
I mean, when I told you about the there's a goat in heaven, like, writing that screenplay, like you can pull from a million different Disney movies because they're all there, but so like, I'm sure that's what it is, because it's, it's not like Hanna-Barbera has an original idea.
It's no Ernest Scared Stupid.
Definitely not. Jim Varney is a national treasure, and I won't hear otherwise.
But Conrad Bain's just too East Coast to work in a West Coast movie like this.
Man, don't get me started with that rivalry. So Thurston Howell III gets a call from Ken the lackey, and they both come up with a plan to steal Chomps. And I'm going to fast forward through a bunch of stuff here because it's just the same thing over and over again. Dogs chasing things chasing dogs. It just keeps happening
all
over and over again.
Slow motion. Honestly, I haven't seen so much slow motion since this is like, and the movies could not be more polar opposite. But for whatever reason, they made me think of the same thing because it felt like they used slow motion to just kind of pad time and everything. But this is, they call her One Eye or Thriller, A Cruel Picture. It's literally just, it's almost pornography with a movie wrapped around it. It is, it's a revenge film though. It's a revenge film. But it's that same stupid idea here. It's bad.
Yeah. So we
Yes.
Hold on a second. Okay. Right. So we get to the third act. We finally get to the third act of this movie. And Norton Security, we learn that Norton Security is about to merge with Park Systems. Can you believe it? It's a really big deal. How big a deal is it? They have their own proving grounds like they're the military.
Ooh.
And as long as Chomps performs the tests well, Mr. Drummond is going to make a whole lot of money. But Chomps gets caught by the dog catcher, and Mr. Drummond takes the wrong dog to the proving grounds instead of Chomps.
So impatient. All you got to do.
Shouldn't there be a way to check? Like, shouldn't you at least be able to rub the fur or something?
No. There is that moment where he goes in, where he takes Chomps out at the base there, and he goes, "Good boy," and rubs him and stuff. And I'm like, at that moment, you should have gone, "Oh, this is a real dog and not a robot."
This dog is warm, not cold like
exactly.
a robot.
This is a
Also-
warm, slobbering dog.
Never to mention, like, whose idea was it to transport a robot dog in a live dog carrier anyway? Like, it should be in a padded suitcase or something, you know?
By the
Right,
way,
exactly.
I love this
Like Iron Man's suit.
Exactly. And it wouldn't be the kind of thing a actual living dog would ever go into willingly.
Yes, the only time that you ever see a crate like that, this 1979 dog crate, is now you put like hunting dogs in that in the back of a truck. That's the only other time that you see that. But that right now in 1979, that's the only dog carrier you got.
Cutting edge dog transport technology.
It looks
That's
like it
Hollywood.
weighs a good jillion pounds.
Yeah, back where I lived, we were still making our own cages out of twigs if we wanted to take our dog somewhere.
So who could have predicted something like this happening? A dog mix-up.
And I love just how, like, clueless Conrad Bain is. He's like, oh, well, just give him time. Our super high-tech robot dog is great, but he still needs the full 20 minutes.
I don't know how he got this far in business. Nothing is clicking with him at all.
Well,
Did you
I
guys-
think. Come on, I think that Bruce told us the origin story of Conrad Bain in this movie.
Did you guys get the idea that they're using a live explosive for the test?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think
We're
if you
getting
look
there.
at-
We're getting there. We're getting there, I
Pray
promise.
continue.
So Chomps ends up busting out of the back of the dog catcher's truck, who would have guessed, and makes it back to Greg Brady's brother's house and Valerie Burton.
Two seconds. Because
Yes, sir.
I want to talk about that dog catching truck. On what planet are you a dog catcher and you catch, we'll say, 20 dogs and put them all in the same cart together and just ride? Do you just ride around picking up dogs, throwing them in with the rest of the dogs in a paddy wagon style?
Yeah,
That does not work. I am sorry.
I gotta
No,
be
sir.
honest. The media I consumed with as a child led me to believe there'd be way more catching of dogs by public officials than there actually are in any town I've ever lived in.
Especially with nets.
Yeah, big nets.
So Valerie Burton Ernie and Greg Brady's brother figure out that the wrong dog is down at the proving grounds. So we cut to the proving grounds and we find out that the test. There's actually 6 military vehicles lined up like a swim meet, and they are each going to hit a landmine, but only one is live ammo. And Chomps needs to figure out which landmine is real.
Why?
Don't the stakes seem a little too high?
Don't they?
If a technology's this new, how about we just practice with,
Dummy
find the
rounds.
spongy ball? Let's start small.
Yeah, put a sticker on the bottom of one of them.
Do what Boston Dynamics does with their robot dogs.
Yes.
Oh, crazy.
So we cut back to Norton Security Systems offices where Ken the lackey and the two
I gotta slow you
unfun.
down. I'm so sorry. I just thought like the same people that are doing this proving grounds are like, we just invented the first self-driving car. Hope it works. And they drop it. in,
Put
like,
women
the
and children
Beltway
on the
DC.
tarmac to see if it misses him.
Self-driving school bus to the airport.
So we cut back to Norton Security Systems offices where Ken the lackey and the 2 unfunniest men in America for the year 1979 show up, and they're going to steal the plans for Chomps from the safe while Chomps is over at the proving grounds. We then cut back to the proving grounds where the real dog Rascal is running around on the tarmac at the proving grounds. And if you don't find that little dog running around on that giant tarmac cute when it's the overhead shot, then you are dead inside. Valerie Burton Ernie and Greg Brady's brother have Chomps, and they're trying to make it to the proving grounds in time. And we keep cutting back and forth between these three scenes. We're running out of time on the proving grounds. 2 unfunniest men in America are trying to break open the safe at Norton Security. Valerie Burton Ernie and Greg's brother trying to get to the proving grounds on time. And at the very last second, Chomp saves the world by grabbing the live mine and tossing it into an outhouse just off site that Mr. Howell is using for some reason.
I love that there's an outhouse and it is the old style, like if you haven't seen this movie, the Shrek style outhouse with the moon on it and everything. It is that
Yes.
old school outhouse and everything. And,
Yes.
and Bacchus is in there dropping a deuce. Why?
Yes, I have no
Why?
idea.
Where did
No
this
idea.
even
No
come
explanation whatsoever.
from? He just shows up and it's just like, oh, I'm sorry, I just happen to be pooping outside
idea,
randomly by whatever the heck's going on down here.
He said he was going to make it his business to be there, so I thought he was just spying on him from inside the outhouse.
I think that was the plan. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And you could look out that little moon hole.
Exactly.
So
Who's going near one of those things?
We've got money for live landmines and armored personnel carriers, but no money for plumbing.
but only an outhouse for you.
Yeah.
So the bomb blows up, and it blows up Jim Backus like he's Daffy Duck in a Merry Melody
So
short.
good. He's practically
And then-
smoking.
And then on his CB radio, we hear the code names Pussycat to Fat Cat over. And Valerie Burton Ernie figures out that Mr. Howell is trying to break into Norton security and grab the blueprints for C.H.O.M.P.S. C.H.O.M.P.S runs back to Norton offices, catches Ken the Lackey and the two unfunniest men in America for 1979, and grabs the bomb that's about to blow up the safe with the blueprints. But when he does, he leaps out the window, and he gets himself exploded real good, turning him into a mess of circuitry and fur in the parking lot. He's literally a smoking pile on the ground, and sad violin music starts playing.
Valerie Bertinelli she shrieks as if that was a real dog that died. I loved it so much. She was like, "Oh my god!" It's just like I was like, "Wow, that was like it's a robot dog." You know that though. It's like her brain just didn't put it together. I don't know, but she was very concerned for a fake animal. Okay,
She's old enough to have potentially been on a set where a real animal was hurt. So who knows?
For sure. Maybe this movie.
they did have two of those dogs. You know?
Maybe they had more
Don't
than
worry,
two.
no dogs were injured, but that really, really tiny guy in the dog suit, he's dead now.
None were injured, but a couple were killed.
You think all hope is lost when, like a miracle brought down from our Lord and Savior Elon Musk, Chomp's eyes light up and his tail starts wagging. There is still a spark in Chomp's. And we cut to what I imagine to be 5 years later. And the first words you hear Greg Brady's brother say is, "The old Chomp's is as good as new." And we learn that Greg's brother has made many, many more Chomp's. And by many more, I mean 7.
So in my head canon, Chomps and Rascal did it, and those are their puppies that came.
This human, this dog
They're half
android
human, half
hybrid
robot.
kind of thing. Yeah,
And it's like that, and they look like that dog on Battlestar Galactica.
Yes, exactly.
starts questioning its existence, like Sam Worthington in that Terminator movie. It's like, why am I here? I'm half dog, I'm half robot. I should not exist.
The old lady who lives next door walks in uninvited and asks out loud to no one, "Has anyone seen my muffin?" And Greg Brady's brother and Valerie Burton Ernie start throwing up uncontrollably.
Gross.
Then one of the Chomps robots jumps on top of Monster, the bully dog's house, and destroys it while Monster is still inside. The last line of dialogue of this movie is from Monster in a voiceover where he utters the word, "Oh, shh."
Wait, do I have
And that's the end of the movie Chomps.
Why? Why that last word?
I love
They
No
made
idea.
it this far without at least pissing anybody off. And then they piss at least one mom off at the last second.
Yeah, they're just like, you're gonna walk out the theater. We already got your money. Screw you. I got him.
That is why it was PG instead of G.
But then
It was
again-
that last minute.
it's like it's 1979, and it's like that's no big whoop.
Yeah.
You-
Yeah. I
you're
mean,
okay.
you look at something like the Bad News Bears. I mean, there's that one scene where the kid just goes off for about 5 minutes cursing. And
But that's the thing is usually if you're gonna get the rating, whether you say it once or every sentence. That's kind of how it worked back then.
oh, you're right.
Here's Barbarella.
so
She's
it's-
topless
it's
at the
weird.
top of the film. PG.
It's weird that they have the PG moment at the very end of the movie. That's all I'm going to say. Is usually you either roll into it back then, and the thing is, look, we got a bunch of cussing dogs. That's our thing. Like I went to more than one movie where the whole shtick was a bunch of little kids cuss.
Yeah.
That was the original Bad News Bears. That was Six Pack. You guys remember Six Pack?
Oh,
I
yeah.
do. I do.
Oh man,
Burt
and I'm
Reynolds.
not talking about Power Pack. I'm talking about Six Pack.
The only other pack he enjoys more, or I don't know. I don't want to speak.
Yeah, they're
for
both
your-
good. They're both good.
I
But man,
I
that,
lo-
ugh.
this dog is fantastic. I love when it just exploded. It's so good. But I love the edit of all the dogs coming out. It is so
Yeah.
bad. It is like,
Yeah.
here's the same footage again, and the same footage again, and the same footage again, and the same footage. But to their credit, like, dude was leaning up against a door correctly in both shots and everything. The continuity was
matched.
decent, and I was like, wow,
matched.
okay, good for you. Movie that hasn't shown me a lot of the,
I'm
competency, but you did there, so good.
I'm surprised they didn't do the thing where the dog just walks in a circle and the camera angle makes it look like an evenly paced dog keeps coming out.
You're not wrong.
But they didn't do that. They did what Adam described there with the cuts.
You're like, nope,
True.
we're just going to continue. But like, it was never more than one dog that would come out of the thing. And you're like, this is so easily edited. You could just keep it going. Why don't you should know this. Eisenstein, where you were at a point. This is 1979. You know what I'm saying? You're like, come on. You should know how movies work at this point.
Not if you're Don Chafee.
Well, you should at this point also know that no matter what we do around here at H.M.P., we have to find out how this film relates back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone.
Why, thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh.
Buongiorno, Mr. Stallone. This one was fairly easy this week because the Stallone connection isn't a person, but instead, production company. Orion Pictures, to be exact. They produced the movie C.H.O.M.P.S, and they also produced your best movie, in my opinion, First Blood. Orion Pictures was originally founded in 1978 when 5 executives over at United Artists were tired of their boss and started Orion Pictures. They say they got the name Orion because the constellation only has 5 stars, but that is totally wrong. And I'm guessing the story is a front to hide how they actually came up with the name. There's probably drugs involved. Who knows? But they had a promise, this new company. And that promise, complete creative autonomy. In their first year, they signed Travolta, Streisand, Burt Reynolds, and everything's coming up Milhouse. But out of the 23 films Orion released between April 1979 and December 1981, only 3 of them made a profit. And Orion executives were conflicted over financing big budgeted films, and they ended up passing on a movie called Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oops.
For that very reason. Now, I'm not claiming to be a financial genius. I'm not your Warren Buffett. I'm not your Scrooge McDuck. But even I know that if you haven't turned profits on more than 90% of your movies, and you're the dude who passed on getting in on some of that Indiana Jones money, you're not going to be a producer for very long. And it just keeps getting worse. Sure, there's a few hits like the Rambo franchise, but for every Rambo First Blood Part 2, there are 5 desperately seeking Susans. Eventually, Orion would end up going into bankruptcy and being bought by MGM, which had also bought UA 20 years previous.
Mm-hmm.
Was every movie Orion released amazing? Hell no. Far from it. But they also weren't putting out cookie cutter crap either. They take a chance on a movie called Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins, but unfortunately, the adventure ended pretty quick. They also produced RoboCop, but they also produced RoboCop 2 and 3. Recently, MGM has been acquired by Amazon, like all things do eventually, like the Planet Mars and this podcast and your mom. And that's it. That's the Stallone connection this week. Stallone is everywhere. And this week, you were even a small part in the making of the movie C.H.O.M.P.S. I hope to hear from you soon, Mr. Stallone. Your pal, Sweet Chauncey from the internet.
Well, it is that time. Here at Hero Movie Podcast, we have our own patented Robin rating system. Bruce, where does C.H.O.M.P.S from 1979 fall in the Robin rating system for you?
I love my kitties. You know, I'm more of a cat person. Dogs, not so much. And this dog looks this dog looks a little bit like my dog.
Kinda.
Which really made it tough for me to sit through this.
It's bigger than your dog though, so you got that. Different color.
This is not a good movie. It's made for babies, and it's not even a good movie for babies. It's a lot of fun to talk about.
Not even a good movie for babies. Put it on the cover.
Don't mistake us having fun talking about the movie for us having had fun watching it.
No,
so even
true.
though it's fun to talk about it, please don't go watch it. I got to give this one a Jason Todd.
I'm going Stephanie Brown on this one. I don't think it's so like it's not great. It's like I said, there's enough fun of it to where if you're going to do something like this, where you talk with friends about it and stuff, then that's fun, you know. But sitting by yourself to watch this for your own amusement, there's so much better ways to spend 90 minutes of your life. Don't do it with this, Stephanie Brown.
Yeah, if I agree with the both of you. If there is a supercut on YouTube of Jim Backus in this movie, then definitely seek that out. But I totally doubt that exists.
You want that character to like go on and have his own series to where he's kind of like Elliot Gould was in the Ocean's movies.
Yes, because he's just amazing in this movie. But the rest of this movie is straight trash. It is a Stephanie Brown for me. I apologize for making you gentlemen watch this. It was fun to talk about.
Yeah.
But man, it was not fun to watch. So Stephanie Brown for me.
Yeah, does not pass the phone test by any stretch of the imagination.
No, not even close.
You'll be looking for crap on eBay, and you're like, I ain't been on eBay in years. You'll go like, I need to go to eBay.
within 5 minutes, while stuff is still happening.
I bought a lawnmower on Craigslist.
You will stop losing attention during the animated sequence. I promise you. You'll be like, oh Jesus, this has been going on for 2.5 minutes now. I gotta check something that ain't this.
Man. It's rough.
That said, it is available on YouTube and Tubi and just you know.
Oh, is it available on YouTube? I should have seen it on that instead.
I believe
Dang.
so. I don't know. I didn't know.
Nobody's sending you a takedown over C.H.O.M.P.S, so it probably is.
Yeah, it's true.
Like we got to make our money on that. I think
the Bert and Ernie estate coming after me.
Arrow Video is going to be putting out a 4K anytime now, I'm sure. So just cross your fingers, everybody. We're going to talk about what we're doing next week in just a moment. But Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
I've just been kind of taking it easy the last couple of weeks, so I'll say just go back and peruse some old episodes of Hero Movie Podcast. Like if you haven't listened to any of the really old stuff before, just go check it out, and then I don't know, send Adam an email, tell him if you think we sound different or not.
Yeah, I will. So funny. I still say the original 1977 Doctor Strange episode. For people that haven't listened to H.O.M.P. Backlog, I don't know what episode number that is. It's fairly early on. It's still, to me, that was like when I knew that this show we're gonna continue doing this show for a long time. Was that episode? I was like, it's too fun to do this stupid crap and just laugh as hard as we did that episode. And that's when I knew that we'd be doing this for a minute after that show. So that's why I always point people back at. Sean, what else we got? Is there something else going on?
We do have something else going on. It's called The Mandalorian 30 Questions. It's a podcast where each week we ask 30 questions of the newest episode of The Mandalorian. And this week is no exception. We are going to be asking 30 questions of episode 7, The Spies.
And a lot of stuff happened in that episode. So we finally got some good stuff to talk about. And then we only have one episode left. So who knows how this thing goes? So I'm sure there'll be some questions about all of that stuff. As we've been kind of doing here, we've been, this week, Sean picked C.H.O.M.P.S. Last week, I had Smoking Causes Coughing, which leaves us now to Bruce. Bruce, what is your choice for next week's film?
I want us to watch Shrunken Heads. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with Shrunken Heads.
Shrunken Heads, that comes from the Full Moon, folks. So a little.
Do we know where we can see that?
I'm certain that I watched it streaming for free with ads. So whether that's Freevee or if that's Tubi, I can't quite remember. But yeah, it's on one of those sites where you can stream it for free with ads. I'm pretty sure.
Or if you're a cultured swine like myself, you already are part of the Full Moon streaming network, and you can stream it on theirs along with all of the other Full Moon products that are all of the highest quality for your entertainment.
And I bet you can purchase
pleasure.
it for less than $6.99 if you wanted to rent it somewhere.
Yeah. So the Shrunken Heads. So that is Bruce's pick, and we'll be talking all about that next week.
It cannot be any worse than C.H.O.M.P.S. C.H.O.M.P.S. was a really hard thing to get through.
We're gonna play this episode. We're gonna play this back next week, I think, and see if you agree with yourself.
All right.
If present Sean agrees with past Sean, I don't know how this is gonna work out, but we'll find out next week when we're talking Shrunken Heads from Full Moon Productions. For Sweet Sean's Kovacs from the United Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Fortress. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie. Damn, you passed me.